Hello, hello. We are
Hello.
back. Recording time. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Miruna.
thank you, my dear Macy, for the
We're
patience and the
having very fun episodes. Yeah. So I'm going to introduce once again, we are in our third episode. Welcome to our It's All Within podcast. You're welcome to join whenever you want. Our first two episodes, just to introduce you, is has been talking in around the surrounding of the topic forgiveness. The first episode we talked about, have you actually forgiven people? What does it like and what does it feel like? And not forgiving people, right? What is the pain that you can associate it with it, or the price, right? That you can have, that can perdure over time. On the second episode, we spoke about the process of forgiveness, right? We each shared how we process through that and what are the signs that shows you that you actually forgiven someone as well. So we decided today for our third episode, regarding the topic of forgiveness, to actually ask ourselves, should we keep talking, have a relationship with people who actually hurt us on a really deep level, right? Should we actually continue a relationship, an interaction? In what type of situations should we or should we not? Once you have forgiven the person, right? Because often I see people mentioning or sharing on social media, I can forgive, but I won't forget, right? What is this essence behind this, right? So we're going to dive deeper into it. I hope that encourages us, have inspiration to speak more about it. So I'm going to give the floor to Miruna, and let's you speak from the heart from regarding this, right?
Thank you so much. That was such a great summary. And while I was listening to you, I'm like, oh my God, all these points that we've touched. And yet today, I'm super excited to see what we share from our hearts and from our experiences and the questions that emerge. So, should we or shouldn't we still be in contact with someone that we have already forgiven, right? Or that, okay, I'm going to go back to an experience in which I needed to stop contact with a person while I was in the process of forgiving. So that I was able to get, to process my own emotions, stop getting triggered, get into my own space, manage to detach from the perspective, the story. I actually several times in my lifetime decided to go no contact. Um, Now, should we come back once we feel that we have forgiven and healed and shifted our perspectives? Should we come back into the same uh, relationship? I think we can come back. I'm not going to say that we always should, because anyway, the should is just to ask a question. We both are not about the shoulds, and right. We could come back into a relationship with different dynamic, and actually, also in my experience, the dynamic will always shift, because once we have different ways of understanding and perceiving the other, our relationship automatically will shift with them. This being said, that does not mean that the person will actually evolve into a different state of consciousness or change their own patterns that are unconscious. It just means, again, in my experience, that I'm going to be less triggered or not at all triggered. Hallelujah. It exists, not at all triggered by their unconscious words or unconscious ways of being, because once I'm healed and once my perspective is shifted, I can I can actually lead differently in communication, manage my boundaries better, uh, make choices that were different from before. So let's say before we would see each other every single month, we would talk on the phone 3 times per week, or I would have to pick up the phone every time I would get a call from the person. As I would re-enter the relationship, or as I re-entered the relationship, talking about a concrete dynamic, I just came with a whole different way of with a clearer way of what are my boundaries and my level of ease and what would work for me as much as what would work for me with them, so them as well, because we're talking about two people. We're not just talking about, okay, this is what works for me, and then that's, I don't care what work doesn't work for you, right? So it's kind of like in the middle, but differently. That's a perspective in concrete experience, so it can work, and sometimes it doesn't work. It just does. It's not healthy to go back into a dynamic, especially when my cue is, are my needs and boundaries respected. So let's say I need or want to have a level of friendship that looks like that, and then the other person is like, no, but I want something else. I respect that, but I don't. So then we cannot go back. It's like wanting to go back to a certain dynamic and relationship that I do not wish. So in that case, for me, it's unhealthy to go back and try to fit something that I clearly don't agree with. I just don't want. So these are two different types of dynamics that I went through, and I must say I have tried to go back and make fit into somebody else's dynamic, and that was a total flop. And well, I needed to, it's good to try. You're like, I tried, which is great. But if your process of forgiveness hasn't been done, if what you want and the other person doesn't wants, it's not the same, it's not going to work. And there's no purpose. There's no reason in hurting each other and trying to like push and pull at a thread that is just, the purpose maybe was not for the relationship to be for the whole lifetime. The purpose maybe just to counter, so to solve, respect each other, learn, grow, and wish each other well, and move along. It's that too is possible. It's not a failure to stop a relationship that has kind of carried out its purpose. What do you think about that? What is your experience in the past, in the
I
present?
I love it. I do. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my computer, and sometimes the network is like um, wavering here. But hopefully, you hear me well
Unstable?
for now. Yeah, it's cutting off. Let me just change my. See if I can position
The internet.
myself. It's my computer.
Don't
My
worry about it. It's the network today with the snow and all.
yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Now, do you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
Perfect.
can hear you.
Okay, I just like moved a bit, like 2 inch closer to the router. So I totally
That's great.
what?
No, I said that's
Hello, do
great.
you
It's going
hear
to be
me?
helpful.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I totally relate with what you said. Um, Upon hearing you, I do agree with it depends where you at, right? So once the process of forgiveness has happened, they should not, and it's okay to be re-triggered in certain ways because there's sometimes other layers to understand on our own accord that we have to, deep diver, release, heal from whatsoever. But once the process of forgiveness has happened, usually they should not have any fear or presumptuous or like expecting the other to like start again to hurt us, right? So if you start back in a relationship expecting the other to be like, yeah, she's probably or he's probably gonna hurt me again. Yeah, I better not just engage with this person because I don't want to be hurt again and have to go through process of forgiveness. Because maybe we did not mention that in the last episode, but the process of forgiveness is not only within, but there's a growth indirectly there's going to be a growth within yourself because you're going to understand a new level, like you said about the dynamics, you're going to understand a new level of understanding, of consciousness, and you're going to forgive. And when forgiveness comes often, there's less fear of being hurt because you've actually processed through it and you actually surrendered. Because behind any like fear of engagement with a person, there's a form of a fear of being hurt, correct? So from that premise, I think it
Yeah.
depends of the level of closeness that you find yourself with. So if, for example, there's different situations where like, oh, this person hurt me in different type of levels, like, and what I've realized in my personal experience is that today very few people from the less closeness do hurt me where I need a strong forgiveness level, right? It's like small like clashes, small arguments or small misunderstanding, and for me it's easy to process through
Mhm.
that and like we go back from reset, right? The more you're close to this person, right, in a relationship, the more they hold power per se to hurt you, right? Because that's where it's raw. That's where they're gonna trigger
Yeah.
you and hurt you at the deepest level,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you find
Yeah.
yourself in a less close relationship with this person, example, an acquaintance of a friend, another example, a person buddy you're working with, right? And they did something with you and you process through the forgiveness and you kind of have not a choice. We always have a choice, but you kind of find yourself having to work with this person again, uh, and indulge again in everything. I think it's
Yeah.
much easier to re-engage with this type of relationship and people because one, they are part of your routine or your lifestyle, and two, you can actually practice how can I actually introduce a new dynamic. And maybe that's going to be a premise for our next episode, we don't know, but how do we reintroduce a new dynamic with this person now that I've forgiven? Because often for me, my experience of forgiveness, yes, I did not forget what happened in the past, but I forgot how I used to take it personal back then. So when I remember myself through the situation that triggered me in the past that I have forgiven now, it's now like a it's now like an object. It's like just a situation that happened. It's no more like a personal intake of the perception of the situation. It's just like, oh, it's snowing outside. Well, the same thing happens when I remember what happened in the past. Oh, that happened. There's a neutral
You have a
there's a
neutral, yeah.
neutral
Mhm.
aspect to it that I don't relate to anymore with it. So that's what I forget. The personal, emotional part of it, it's forgiven. So it's like processed through. So if you feel like you're ready, you can practice that with less close people. How can I introduce now a better dynamic? How can I actually now lead by not necessarily by example, but lead now with love, with a state of communication that is now heightened, better level of conscience from your process that you live through, right? So for that, I do, encourage you to try it out, right? Now, for people who are much closer to you, and that's the people have shared with me many times, example, your family, your partner, your ex partner, people who are actually very close physically, mentally, emotionally with you and actually hurts you the most, right? That's often related. So, should you keep talking with them? Should you not? And I've had friends that told me, well, Macy, I love my family to death, but I cannot handle them too much in a week, right? I've decided for my well-being and my boundaries to actually step back and actually see them less. And that's okay. That's totally okay. Like Mirona said, you've got to go with your own needs and your boundaries and also your priorities. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what nourishes me at that moment, right? And then I don't want you to push. We can talk about like as you grow in consciousness, I can actually be the one leading in dynamics and actually lead the change. But for the purpose of forgiveness, like you've been hurt, you went through the process of forgiveness. Should I talk back with this person? It's up to where you at the moment. What are my priorities? Do I want to improve in my relationship with my family? Is this a priority I want to do? Or do I want to actually focus on my well-being and restart and be strengthened by my experiences and take a moment back and step back so I can refocus to what I can pour down on myself? It depends what's your priority at that
Mm.
moment in your, right? So when it comes from my partner, well, in your case, I know he was an ex-partner, so like for sure you have a choice to like, do I engage in a relationship afterwards that like as a friend or whatever, or do I not? We have different processes, right? For my experience, it's been with my current partner where I can't, possibly refuse to. For me, I can possibly to refuse to to forgive, not forgive, and just like go on with grudge in a relationship on an everyday basis, right? I'm like, it's not an option for me because I'm just gonna suffer a lot from that. So I choose to, once I process the forgiveness process, I choose to, like we said it in the last call, chop it like a hot potato. So I release it. It doesn't hold any more grudges. It doesn't hold any more in the space of consciousness of like, hey, remember when you did that? We do that obviously sometimes. Like I think we can all relate. We lose it sometimes. We're in the fight mode, we're in the ego mode, and we just want to pick at the other person and hurt the other person out of spite. Listen, it happens to
Do
everyone,
it
right?
again. Not even,
Yes,
yeah. You just
exactly.
want to I don't want this to happen again, please. Right? It's just
Exactly, right?
trying to
So
remind.
exactly. So I just encourage you to use the triggers that you have with your close people as an opportunity to see what's within and see, why am I being triggered, right? Why am I being hurt? Because this person never, especially the people you hold close dear to, never intended to hurt you, right? So what inside is hurting? What is the fear below? And that's another discussion for another episode. So to conclude, I spoke a lot. Is basically you choose to forgive. So by choosing to forgive, you choose to actually love, keep loving this person you have close there. And you actually choose to bring a new dynamic to the relationship. So that's my experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely love that sharing and the perspectives that you navigated. Um, I would I would I would add a point on when somebody hurt you because they were unconscious or because they wanted to, just to name that it can happen for sure. Even if they wanted to, still they are unconscious. For me, a person who hurt somebody because they wanted to get revenge or they wanted to make a point or whatever, it's always an unconscious person.
Mm,
I believe in forgiveness, full forgiveness of that person. However, the comeback or the reinteracting with such a person would really require discernment and a gradual observation of, did this person actually change? But I would really take it with a lot of precaution and keep them very far away for observation and see if such intentions, be them unconscious or not, are still there. That somebody could actually want to hurt you. Some people think that any attention is good attention. So even if I send you something that will emotionally like disturb you, I guess you can care about me. It's not. Not at all. So it's kind of like it's getting into toxic behavior, which is sometimes can be interpreted as love, which is not. So in that case, definitely I would say, you know, we always have. the voice of intuition that speaks to us. So for each and every one of us, that voice is there, even if we don't listen to it. So for me, it's either you haven't finished processing your hurt, so your system is a bit off with this person, so you're like, oh, maybe they have changed, but you cannot really see it because what's going on here, you haven't finished to it. In that case, I would definitely do not re-engage. This is what I have done. Do
Mm-hmm.
not re-engage. Stay in your cocooning, do your healing, pray. I love to pray for, well, to pray in general, but to pray for the person, just so that they may be well, and really wish them a lot of light. That really helps, really, to actually even heal yourself from the whole thing. So that would be one thing. And then the other thing is that if you have finished really forgiving, you feel in peace, you're stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and re-enter in contact with that person, and you feel and you hear your intuition being like, something is off, like their level of consciousness is not trustworthy, the behaviors that they have heard before still they have, and they haven't really worked through it, and basically saying, I do not feel safe in the presence of this person. I would totally listen to that voice and
I
again
love it.
move along. I would not re-engage. You can just re-engage as, given an example, somebody having an ex-partner with whom they have children with. But for sure, they're going to re-engage with them. They're parenting their children. But even in that case, you can totally re-engage differently. Hold very tight boundaries, clear, especially clear emotional boundaries, and be very sane within our space, and not allow the words or the actions of the other to hurt us again. Because again, they can do whatever they choose, but we do not have to allow this in our psyche, in our physical body, in our heart. So in that case, I would definitely just really bless them from afar, but not open up my energy system with such a person. I know it happens very often in situations in which we have to still interact with the person because of children, or because, as you said, like a workspace. Even so, we can definitely act and think differently than we did before. We always have this choice and freedom. This is what I find really helps us all, having lived through different types of situations. No matter what the other person does or says, we are free not to be hurt. Seriously, we can definitely, inside of our bodies and hearts and
Said.
minds, we are free not to take personally, to bless the person, to choose not to rethink 10 times what they have said, so that we actually stab ourselves in our minds. And um, and this is actually a conversation I had with a dear friend, the feeling of not having the power to, like, as if they're going to hurt me again. What they're going This was a dynamic in which they have children. And I remember taking the time and her realizing, but this is very different now. We don't live together, we don't share assets together, and I can interact totally differently. I can always change, no matter if they don't change at all. Let's just say they do the same thing over and over again, even or especially if they know they're hurting you. You can definitely change. And she shifted, and the person shifted. Her ex-husband shifted because he had no choice. Because nobody will keep on doing something if you don't get any emotional reaction, if you don't get the same results, even if they're negative, as before. You're gonna get tired and stop doing it, because but it just doesn't work. So that was
Exactly.
very efficient for her. It took her a long time. It was gradual. I bless her with all my heart. She went through so
I love
much.
it.
It's totally possible. Totally possible.
You
So I
will,
just wanted to
and
share this with. for so many people that have lived into dynamics that were a bit harder, especially with narcissistic type of persons, which the world is, filled with them, or did you say very unconscious type of people,
Yeah,
people that are
I
hurt, unconscious. Yeah, because let's not let's not label
label, yeah. Well
black
said,
and white.
Mehul.
It's not black and
Oh,
white.
exactly. There's no black and white. There's so many shades of different colors. There's not just black
Really,
and white colors. I love this,
no.
and we're gonna wrap it up because we like seriously, guys. We could talk for hours if we were allowed to, but like we want to be,
Yes,
not too heavy in our
we
calls.
want to be sweet and
Um,
short.
I love the questions, and the way I wrap it up, it would be to say things like you said, like the discernment, right? Am I able, can I discern right now what feels right for me or not? You know, a second question you can ask yourself: do you feel ready to re-engage with this person? If you have hesitancy and your intuition is like, I feel like getting sensitive, or I get very like, you know, not too strong on my feet before I re-engage with this person, then per se
Yeah,
it's not that you haven't forgiven, but it's just that it's time to fortify yourself, right? It's time to
yeah,
strengthen. It's time to really dive deeper and grow in the self-confidence and self-worth, right? Everything is connected, right? So if there is sometimes a womblings feeling, maybe like she said, for now, take a moment for yourself to fortify. For example, parents who have common kids together and they have to reassess together, there is truly a power within ourselves where you can lead. When I say lead by change, is leading the dynamic by what you
yeah,
say, what you not say, by your energy, by your thoughts. And this is everything we're going to be actually touching base in our next episode. That's all the series about is to show you that even though the person is not changing per se or making the work for themselves, by interacting with you, you are leading a change. You are leading a new level of energy and consciousness with them.
yeah,
And they don't even aware of. It's unconsciously being done. So there's this power as well. So we want you to be reminded that you're not at the mercy of the other person hurting you again. Not anymore. It's time for
yeah,
you to take back what's within, understand the power that each of us have, but with a power of love and humbleness, obviously, and understanding, and become in this inner peace, right? We talk often about higher consciousness, higher self. This is the inner peace we're talking about. This is the inner neutrality where we don't take things
yeah,
personal. It's not that it's above us, it's just a thing, right? It's a situation, right? We don't identify anymore with our hurt. It's an experience for the body, but it's not our identity. So that's definitely something I would love to talk about later in the next episode. Who knows? But
totally.
I love this. I hope we answered the question that we asked ourselves in the beginning of this episode. Do you have anything else, Miruna, that you would like to wrap it up, finish up with, or not?
And just very, very grateful as always. Absolutely love our conversations as I was sharing with you before. Um, Listen to your inner self, pay attention to it. That's what I would remind us all again. Trust it, and as you said, fortify yourself within. Take the time. There's no need to vilify anybody or anything.
Mm,
Just take all the time. It's so worth it, because if we don't take that time anyway, if you don't take that time, it's just going to repeat experiences because until you get it, so it
well
just
said.
doesn't work. Like, skip it. Do it fully. You're not alone. Always good people around to support. So I'm super happy to have shared a little bit of this topic of forgiveness and relationship dynamics.
Thank you so much. See you next time.
See you next time. Can't wait.